Hey, this is Eric, and in this video we're going to take a look at the newest version of Autocrat. That's Autocrat version 3.0. Now, if you're not familiar with Autocrat, it's what we call an add-on for Google Sheets. Now, add-ons are third-party tools developed by other folks that bring new features and functions that aren't normally part of the Google Suite. Add-ons can work in Sheets, and then there's also add-ons for Docs, and there's add-ons for Forms. In this particular case, Autocrat is specifically an add-on for Google Sheets. Now, if you're not familiar with Autocrat, it's what we normally call a mail merge tool. The idea being that it's going to take data from a spreadsheet and merge it into a Google Doc or a PDF or even into another spreadsheet. A lot of times we'll see stuff like this being used to generate form letters, parent letters, certificates, maybe documents specific to each student in a class. Now, I'm going to run through this with you today, and I'm going to show you how I most often use Autocrat, which is to generate certificates of attendance for the webinars that I do. So as we go through this, we should see all the features of Autocrat, but also see some practical examples of how it can be used, and a few of those are a little bit more advanced than you might do in just a normal merge. All right, so first of all, let's talk about the situation. So I run a website called Control-Alt-Achieve, which is at controlaltachieve.com. And one of the things I do there, in addition to the blog and other things, is I do webinars. I try to put out about 1 or 2 webinars a month. And if you scroll down here, you'll see I've got about 22 of them up here at the moment that I've done over the last year or so. Now, these webinars are all an hour long, and when somebody gets done watching one, I want to be able to give them something to show that they have completed it. So at the end of watching the webinar, I have a short quiz that people can take. Here's an example of such a quiz. Let me bring one up. There you go. And so here's for the webinar on online assessments with Google Forms. And so there's a short quiz that asks for your name and your email address and then 5 quick questions just to prove that you actually watched the webinar. And as long as you get 80% or better on that, meaning 4 or 5 questions right, then what I want to do is be able to send you a certificate of attendance saying, here you go, you get a 1-hour certificate to turn into your school for PD hours. So to do this, what ended up being the best solution for me was to use Autocrat. And so I want to show you how I do that specifically with Autocrat to generate these PDF certificates of attendance for the webinars that I put out. All right, so let's start with the basics. What we're going to need to do to make a mail merge successful with Autocrat is a couple of key things. We're going to first of all need source data. We're going to need something that's going to go into the merge. So remember, I told you I've got this quiz. So I basically built a quiz in Google Forms. Now, when anybody takes that quiz, the results from that go into a Google spreadsheet. And so each row of the spreadsheet becomes a different person's questions from their quiz. That's the raw data. That's the data I'm going to pull from. Now, to be fair, I do a few other things here besides just the raw data. The first columns up through column J is what the participant, the person who watched the webinar, has submitted. After that, the next few columns, these are things that I've actually thrown in as calculations. Basically, what I do is I compare their answers to a key that I've developed in a different tab here, and I compare the key to what they answered, and they get a 1 or a 0 if they got them right or wrong, and then I give them a total score, and then I indicate a Y or an N for if they passed or not. I also pull in the title, the web address for the webinar, and the objectives. Those come from a data tab so that the objectives can print on their certificate of attendance. So I do pull in a few other things besides just what they filled out on their form. But the point is, that's what you need, is you need raw data. You need the information that's going to be merged. So that's one piece of a mail merge. The second thing you need in any mail merge is the template you're merging it into. Now, I actually have 2 different templates, whether somebody passed or failed, it depends. So let's say they passed that. Well, here I have a Google Doc template, a certificate of completion. that basically has all the information they need and some placeholders in here. You'll notice your first name, your last name, title, timestamp, objectives. These are things that are going to get filled in during the merge. And yeah, those little less than and greater than symbols are important around those because it sets it aside as being a tag. It's like a variable. It lets Autocrat know this is where you're going to put the data. And I'm sure you can guess those come straight from the spreadsheet. Your first name, your last name, here's the objectives, here's the title, things like that. Pulls them right from there. Now, what if somebody doesn't pass the quiz? Well, in that case, I'm not going to give them a certificate of attendance. Instead, they get a different merged document, which is basically a simple document that says, hey, thanks so much for taking the quiz. Unfortunately, you got a score of whatever that score was and you needed 80% or better to pass. Hey, please try again. Go back to the URL and take a look at the information again. So depending upon whether they pass or fail, they may get this document or they may get the certificate of completion. So I've got the raw data that I'm going to merge into the templates. What else do I need? Well, the other thing I need is the Autocrat add-on. Now, I've already got it installed, but if you haven't installed add-ons in the past, you simply go to add-ons, go down to get add-ons, and it will give you this menu here where you can find all kinds of wonderful add-ons out there. And if there's one that you don't have installed, you can just click the plus free button and it will install it. I've already got Autocrat installed on mine, but if you didn't, you could install it from there. And at that point, we are ready to go. So basically what we're going to do is launch Autocrat and basically tell it the rules, tell it how to do the merge. And that's really all that's left at that point, is giving it the conditions, giving it the rules on how to do that merge. Now, we're going to be looking at Autocrat version 3. So if you're used to using Autocrat, you're probably familiar with Autocrat 2, at least up until around mid-2016 when I'm recording this. But at this point, Autocrat 3 is coming out. I want to show you some of the things that make it different and see how the whole process works. They've done a fantastic job updating the add-on to just make it a lot more user-friendly. So I'm going to go up to add-ons, I'm going to go down to Autocrat, and I'm going to go over to open. And at that point, it's going to launch the Autocrat add-on. Give that a moment to pop up there. And you'll notice one of the first things you're going to see different is it no longer pops up on the side. So we used to get a panel over here on the right-hand side, and you'd click things from the panel that would open up things in the middle, then you'd go back to the panel. Everything happens here in the middle now. So it's a lot more centralized. You're not jumping around quite as much. And they've done a really nice job streamlining that. All right, so inside of this spreadsheet, I can now create Autocrat jobs, and you can have more than one job. And we're going to do that. We're actually going to have 2 jobs, one for people that passed the quiz and one for those that failed the quiz. So it's perfectly fine to have a set of data, maybe your students' names and their email addresses and their home addresses and all sorts of things. And hey, you can make jobs for tons of different things. Maybe one of the jobs is a form letter that goes home to the parents, giving them their student's password. Maybe another job is to create labels that are going to go on students' folders, or another job, you get the idea. You could have a whole bunch of different jobs coming from the same data, and that's perfectly fine. All right, so let's go ahead and say we want to create a new job. And basically this wizard is going to walk you through the whole process. Now, I'm not going to type everything in by hand. I've actually typed this up ahead of time in a different window, so I'm going to be pulling things over from the other window and pasting them in here as we go to hopefully make this a little bit smoother in the process. All right, so let's get going here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name my job. And in this case, I'm going to name it passed because we have 2 jobs, one job for passing and one for failing. So this will be the passed job for people that have passed the quiz. So I'll put that in and just hit my next button to move up. And at this point, it wants to know which template I would like to use. Now, I can go to my drive and grab a template. Or if I've used some recently, I can just grab one of the recent ones. Well, I have, these are the ones I normally use for this. So I'm going to grab my webinar certificate template here, and I'm going to say, let's use that because these people have passed it. I want to give them the certificate for that. So, again, I could go to my drive and browse for it, but since I've used it recently, I will just grab it out of the recent list. Now, as soon as you grab the template, Autocrat's going to compare that template to what you have in the spreadsheet here and try to match up those variable fields. So let's let it do that. It's got my template now. I'll hit next. And what it does is it looks through my template, and it finds things like your first name, your last name, title, timestamp, objectives, and then it tries to map it to columns over here in the spreadsheet. Well, the thing is, if you name them the same, your job's already done for you. So if you make sure that the names of your columns in the spreadsheet are spelled exactly the same as the merge fields in here. So here's my certificate of completion. If I make these merge fields exactly the same as my column headers, then it will match them, and including case sensitivity. Yeah, you got to make sure things are capitalized exactly the same. Now, if for any reason they're not named the same, that's okay. It's no big deal. But you'll have to go in and make the match. So if it doesn't match it itself, you'll have to click on there, look through all of your columns to find the correct one. Now, it was already correct. It had the right one, but I could always change that. Now, there is something new, several new things in 3.0. Another is the type of a merge field this is. Now, these are all going to be standard in this case, but in the next example I show you, I actually will use one that's a hyperlink. You can now tell it that instead of merging this as just text, it's actually a hyperlink, at which point when it does the merge, it'll make it an active hyperlink, which is really nice. And another thing you can merge is images. So if you have somewhere in your spreadsheet a column that has web addresses that point out to images, it will, instead of putting that exact text to the link to the image, it'll put the image. It'll grab the actual image and put it right there inside of your document. So that's fantastic. Well, I don't have any images in mind, so we're just going to stick with standard. All right, let's hit next. What's it want to know now? Well, now it wants to know what to name the file that gets created. Okay, probably a good idea to make sure that it's a unique name so you don't get it confused with anything else. So, I mean, I could be tempted just to call it certificate, and that's fine. I could just type in certificates. Well, but then the next time I run it, or the next time I run it, I'll have all these files called certificates, and it might get a little confusing. So what you can do is you can use any of your column headings. Now notice here, if I hit this little right arrow, it opens up and shows me these are all of my column headings I can use. I can actually grab any of these and put them inside of these text boxes here and use those variables. And that's exactly what I've done. So again, I'm going to save time here. I've already typed this up. I'm just going to paste it in. But you'll notice I'm going to name the document certificate, followed by whatever the title is of that webinar, followed by the person's first name, their last name, and then today. Now, today is actually a different variable. That's not one of my column headings. That comes new in Autocrat 3.0, today and now. You can put those in. It'll either put the date or the time right into that file. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab today and just have that be in the file name there. All right. What type of document am I making? Well, I'm going to create a Google Doc out of this. And do I want this to be multiple documents, meaning one document per person? Or am I going to put everything together in one big document? Hey, guess what? That's new too. Yes, it is. You can now, if you want, take a whole bunch of information in a spreadsheet and have all the rows all become different pages in a single document. Now, that's not going to make sense here because it's for individual people. Each person gets their own certificate. But if I was doing something where I wanted to put them all in one document so that I could just print them all out in one fell swoop, that'd be great. For example, when we do our conference and we get all sorts of proposals for sessions, it's nice to be able to dump those all out in one big document so I can read through them to see which sessions we want to accept. So that would be a nice use of that. In this case, though, we're going to stick with multiple documents. Let's keep on moving. Now I got to pick where these files are going to go. So we're going to pick a folder, and in this case, we use a folder in our webinars. Let me find the one I want to use here. Inside of our webinars folder, we have a certificates folder. There it is. So I'm just going to drop them in our certificates folder. It's a perfectly good place to put them. There is an option to add what's called a dynamic folder reference. So if you want, you can have a column in your spreadsheet that actually has the ID for specific folders so that it'll put things in different folders based upon some criteria in there. So if you've got multiple teachers and each teacher has their own folder, but in this case, I don't. It's all just going into one folder. Okay, let's keep on going. So now we need a merge condition. Well, the idea behind this is, when does this merge happen? Just all the time or under special conditions? Well, definitely under special conditions. When somebody takes the quiz, they have to pass it to get the certificate. Remember what I told you, I calculate all that up there in the spreadsheet. So I'm going to add a condition, and out of all my columns, the one I care about is the one called past. I want the past column to equal yes or equal a y. That indicates if there's a y in there, the way I've done my formulas, that means they got an 80% or 100% on it, so they passed it. So only if that happens should this merge occur. Let's keep going, hit next. Are we going to share the document out to the person? Well, yeah, they need their certificate, so of course we're going to do that. What kind of a document? Well, I could send it as a Google Doc, but you know what? I typically send this as a PDF because it's a certificate of attendance, and it's a little bit easier for them to maybe send off to somebody else. So I usually stick with a PDF for that. All right, now at this point, I need to decide how to email this to them. So I need to fill in things like who it goes to. Well, remember, it's a different person every time, but that is one of our columns. Your email address was one of the columns. And so now what I want to do is put in the person's email address as to who it's going to go to. So again, I can use the same format there. I can come in and grab your email address from there. Again, I've already got that copied, so I'll just make it a little bit faster and paste that in. For the subject, again, I've got this pre-written. I will copy and paste in the subject that everybody gets, which is quiz results dash the title of the webinar. And then the big portion of it is the actual message we send out to people. So down here, I'll paste all that in, and you'll see that what we send out is your first name, your last name, congratulations on passing the quiz with this title, with this score, attached is your certificate of attendance, yada, 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 yada. You get the idea. All right. So we have got the email all set up now. Let's click next. And at this point, it wants to know, when should this run? When should the merge happen? Well, I choose to run it on the form submit. So when somebody submits the form, when they take the quiz, that will trigger it to run. That way they don't have to wait. I could say, run once a day or something, and that would be fine, but I have to let people know, well, it's going to take up to 24 hours before you get your results. I just have it run automatically when people submit the quiz. And let's hit save. And there we go. Now, I know that took a little bit of time, but I was also going slow and explaining it. It actually goes pretty quick once you get used to it. And again, I've got all this stuff typed up, so it saves me even more time just to copy and paste it. Now, to prove that to you, I'm going to add a second job for failure, and you'll see this one's going to go a lot faster. I won't go quite as slow on this one, and you'll see it's a little bit more, speedy. So this is if somebody passes the quiz. Well, what about when they fail? I need to run a merge for that as well. So let's do another new job. And this time it's going to be for failed. So we'll go ahead and name it failed. And we'll pick our template, which is the failed template. It'll grab the tags from that template and try to match them to my columns, which it will do right here successfully. Now here I will do one thing different. Remember I told you I do have a link in this one to tell people to go back and try the quiz again. So I'm going to let Autocrat know that that is a hyperlink. And at that point, it'll actually make that a clickable link in the document that gets sent to them. Let's keep going. File name, not much different here, pretty much what we did last time. So they're going to get a file name called quiz results, title name today. It will be a Google document, and it will be one document per person. Keep on going. Our destination folder, pretty much the same thing. If I go to our webinars folder, we have a failed folder in there. There it is. That's where we put all of those. We won't do the dynamic folder reference just like we did last time. Our merge condition now needs to be passing is no. Actually an N, capital N. Passing is no. And let's keep on moving. Do we want to share this with the person? Sure we do. In this case, it's not a certificate, so I'm not going to make it a PDF. I'll just make it a view-only document that has the information in it. And again, we do need to send them their email. So we will put in their email address. We will grab the subject, put that in, and then, of course, the message that we send to them, letting them know we are sorry, but you need to try that again. So basically it says, thank you. Unfortunately, you got a score of this %. You needed an 80. Please try again. Go back to this URL and try again. And we will have that run when somebody submits the form. And see, I promised you that was much quicker. It was much faster that time going through. Well, that's pretty much it. We have now created all the rules for Autocrat to run. Now, you'll notice anytime I open up Autocrat now, I'll get welcomed by this screen. Well, in this spreadsheet, each spreadsheet is unique, of course, but in this spreadsheet, I'll get my past job and my failed job. So if I close out of Autocrat and I open it right back up, add-ons, Autocrat, open, I'll get greeted by the screen that shows my past and my failed jobs there. Now, if I want to, I can hover above either one of those, and there are some special little buttons that do pop up that I can do some stuff with. I'll show those to you here. If I hover above past, there's a little play button which will run the job. So if I'm doing this manually or I don't want to wait for something to run, I can always run it. There's the edit button to go right back in and make any changes to it. There's also this button which is pretty cool. This is the job details button. If you click on that, basically it shows you all the settings of your job, and it allows you to send a preview of the job to yourself. So if you want to check and see, is the job actually going to function properly, you can click the preview and it will grab the first mergeable row and it will run it and send that to you. Okay. And then if I go over to the trash can, I can delete the job as well. Same thing for failed. Click on the little information and it will go ahead and show me all the settings for that one. And again, I could run the first job if there was one available to run. I don't think we have a failed option yet. All right. So let's go ahead and try it out. So we have our raw data. We have our certificate of completion, our certificate for failure. We have gone into Autocrat and set up the rules. Now we just need to take the quiz and see what happens. So what I've done is I've opened up the quiz twice. In the first one, I have filled in the correct answers, well, mostly correct, enough to get them at 80%. So this is Sarah Bellum. She's very, very smart, very brainy. And then over here we have our second student. This is Jim Shorts. Didn't do quite as well. I think he's got like a 40% on this one, so I didn't let him get as many of them right. Now, once they take this quiz and they hit submit, we should see a new row come in with their answers, and then my formulas will go ahead and calculate what they got right and wrong and put a yes or a no there. And I am actually using another add-on that is the copy down add-on that brings those formulas down and works alongside nicely with Autocrat. So let's give it a shot. So we'll start off with Sarah. And again, she should have, I think, 80% of these right. I think that's the way I set it up. So let me hit submit. And let's watch our spreadsheet here. Okay, so there's her results. Those came in. And then copy down just ran and calculated her score, and she got an 80. Now, at this point, what's going to happen is Autocrat's going to run. Now, it may not run like lickety split. There is a little bit of a delay in there, which is good. It needs to give a little bit of time to make sure that copy down runs properly and all that occurs. But once that's all done, what we're going to get is these columns over here. These are the columns that show that Autocrat ran, and you've got some different columns. The first four, I believe, are probably for my passing. Let's see, those are for the past columns, yes, and these are for the failed columns. So once it runs, these will fill in here and show me that job has completed. And there they are. So in columns V, W, X, and Y, it's got the merge data from that, including a link to the actual document, and lets me know that it was successfully merged. So what basically happened? Well, it should have taken that data and merged it with the certificate and sent an email to the person. Now, I used my email address, so if I pop over to my Gmail, we should see that. So let's try that. And here we go. Here is my Gmail message I got saying, Sarah Bellum, congratulations on passing the quiz. It has put her name in there, it's put the title in, it's put the score in, and if I look down at the bottom, there is the PDF that got merged, and there we have her name, the title, we've got the date, we've got the objectives, everything has been inserted in there for her. Fantastic. So let's try the same thing now, but this time let's do it with somebody who doesn't pass. So let's go ahead with Jim Shorts. His should be about a 40%, I believe, the way I've set it up, so I'm going to hit submit on that. We'll pop back over now to the spreadsheet where we see Jim's coming in there. And now it's grading him. He's getting some zeros and some ones, only getting a 40%. So my formulas are going to calculate that as an N for not passing. And then again, we just have to give it a moment and Autocrat will run and will do that merge for us. And now that's run, and you'll see that the results show up in columns Z through AC because that is for the failed jobs. And if we go to my email, there it is. So Jim Short's got an email saying, sorry, unfortunately you got a 40%, you did not pass, please try again. And instead of attaching a PDF, I did just attach a Google Doc for that one. All right, and so that's the way it works. Basically, people can take the quiz, the data shows up in the spreadsheet, and then Autocrat just sits there waiting to be triggered by the form submit to run that merge. And for us, this has proven to be a fantastic way to provide professional development to people whenever it meets their schedule, whether it's late at night, during the summer, on the weekends, early in the morning, whatever time works best. So what I would encourage you to do, if you would like to try this out yourself, again, you can head over to my website at controlaltachieve.com and then click on the webinars tab, or just go straight to controlaltachieve.com/webinars, and that'll bring you to the spot where you can see all those webinars. Feel free to take any of those, watch those, and then take the quiz at the end, and now you know exactly what is happening behind the scenes there. And finally, Autocrat is created by New Visions Cloud Lab, who also make many other excellent add-ons. I would encourage you to visit their website at cloudlab.newvisions.org to take a look at all the other awesome add-ons and scripts that they have available, many of which I use in a lot of my other projects, and I'm sure you'll find some very useful add-ons and scripts here as well. Thanks so much. Take care.